Hello and welcome back to another Bestiary video. This time in Monster Hunter Wilds, we will be taking a look at some of the various endemic life found throughout. The sheer amount of variety in the endemic life is quite staggering. Some of them helpful to the player, but just as many can hinder the player if they are not careful. Let's get started on that. First up on the list is the Nothpeckers. You may have seen a glance of these birds if you managed not to scare away the herd of Ceratonophs, or if a large monster did not manage to do so as well. These Nothpeckers are not just standing on these Ceratonophs for no particular reason. They have a symbiotic relationship with Ceratonophs, where they use the Ceratonophs for shelter and protection, and in turn, they eat various insects and critters that get under the scales of the Ceratonophs, as well as various cleanings that they can do on them as well. The Nothpeckers have a real-world reflection that is similarly close in name, called the Oxpeckers. It is a species of birds that acts very similar to Nothpeckers, but with less of a dinosaur flair that the Nothpeckers have to their design. And a fun bit of twist, though, in a study a couple of years ago, it was discovered that Oxpeckers may not be entirely symbiotic in their relationship with various large mammals that they help get various critters off of. But instead it was discovered that they might be more parasitic in nature and have been spotted eating flesh from these larger mammals quite often. So is a Nothpecker a more idyllic version of the real-world equivalent of an Oxpecker, or do they hold their dirty secrets as well? You know them, you love them, and you probably hate them too. We're taking a look at the various toads that have appeared throughout not only Monster Hunter Wilds, but Rise and World as well. These little toads come in a variety of different elements. Most famously is the Paratoad, that is able to paralyze anything that comes into contact with its gaseous breath. And that includes the player as well. Unlike the Paratoad and the Sleep Toad we find in the game, the Nitro Toad does not shoot out a gaseous breath, but instead uses a liquid to cause an explosion. Even when looking at the so-called liquid that it spits out, it looks more like a globule or like some sort of hairball for a toad that ends up being a detonation. In the researchers' notes on this, even they are not sure exactly what this liquid is that causes them to combust like they do. A fun little detail, and you can see this through some other endemic life that have variations on them, is each of the toads have different sounding croaks, and we'll give them a little listen right here. Overall, just a very fun endemic life, and one I'm sure anyone who's played World, Wilds, or even Rise has gotten a unfortunate encounter with. Heading over to the Scarlet Forest, we will be taking a look at Dapperwings. The anatomy of these birds is very bizarre and feels right in line with what you would see in a Monster Hunter game in true. Its wings are more like that of a bat, and reflecting that, their face is not much of a bird on closer observation, more that of a marsupial. Even has fangs that it bears in its mouth as well. As you watch the footage on these, you will notice there is an extreme variety of colors that the Dapperwings can appear in. And the males have a more flamboyant appearance to them as well, which they use to attract mates, just like you would see in various birds in real life. Heading back to the teeth, there are very few birds in real life who still have teeth to some degree, but not ones you would expect to see like we have on the Dapperwings. With this, most birds in real life still have the genes to grow teeth, but have simply evolved away from it to strictly now grow beaks. This could be a possible reason to why, when you look at birds in the various dinosaur ages, you will see a lot of them have both beaks and teeth, as they were possibly still evolving out of them. If you keep your eyes peeled, you will also notice in this footage I managed to capture a Dazzlewing on camera, which are quite extravagant in their appearance compared to their normal Dapperwing counterparts. In my walk-along video, I briefly mentioned gawkies during one of the transitional areas on the way within the Wyverian ruins. And now we're taking out their much more interesting counterparts, the Mimiphytas. The Mimiphytas have a very fun pun for a name, and the Monster Hunter devs, they love their puns. You can see it throughout their various titles, even the older titles. Mimiphyta, Mimi being mimic, and Phyta, which is a word used for the taxonomic names, specifically those classed as being plants in some matter of the sense. So, plant-like, or something that is kind of planty, I guess. Mimiphyta, mimic plant. It's very fun. I like to describe these as the mammal of Venus flytraps, as they like to pretend to be flowers and fungi. During the plenty, you can see them acting as flowers, trying to capture various insects and ambush them with their big floppy ears. And during the fallow, you can see them acting like mushrooms. I even managed to find one that was sleeping, which was oh so cute. With this camouflage for ambushing prey, it also allows them to hide from predators. Given that they are small mammals, they are vulnerable to all manner of things. If a large monster shows up, they will very often stand their ground in blending in, even if they end up getting smushed by a Doshaguma or a Raph. So maybe not the brightest of little dudes. For this one, we'll be going to various locales and looking at mantle bugs. They come in a few varieties depending on the locale, and the first one here is a Vigormantle, which, if you look on top of them, they have various healing herbs they use to cover themselves to not only camouflage, but provide a source of sustenance for themselves. When you grab these mantle bugs to get the benefits from them, whether it be to heal or protect you from harsh weather, they have a funny animation where they kind of dongle off and fall away, revealing that they are just a little caterpillar. Well, little for Monster Hunter. When I was looking at these closer, they also somewhat reminded me of tardigrades as well, also known as water bears, which somewhat fits their theming of being very resilient creatures for their size. I also found some similarities to a real-life moth, as well as other various insects, such as the Cingalora aerata, or the wavy-lined emerald moth. In its caterpillar state, it uses flowers to help camouflage itself. If you go inside the model of these as well, you can see that it has a two-pronged tail. I like to assume that it uses this tail to help hold on to its mantle. Now for a most evil of insects, and probably one of the most aggressive monsters in the game, and that's saying a lot for endemic life of all things. These extremely territorial insects will attack anything that gets within range with very little hesitation. They can usually only be seen at night unless you go to one of their nests, And at night, you can see them using a bioluminescent organ to help light up its victims that it decides to sting. These are somewhat reminiscent of a firefly bug, where they have a glowing thorax that they help use to not only communicate but navigate around. And as well with this, I saw some similarities to a fish of all things, the Anomalopeidae, which is a fish that has bioluminescent bacteria that it keeps in a pouch that it uses as a flashlight and also uses it to help communicate and escape various prey. It's really cool to see their take on a bioluminescence creature in a much more exaggerated way with these literal flashlights hanging off these insects. Heading over to the Windward Plains to see the Tracktail Lizards. These cute little reptiles tend to travel in pairs. They have some features that are somewhat reminiscent of meerkats, of all things, where they will stand on their tails when they're alert to various danger and help be a guard for their pair, which they travel in pairs of. When you follow them throughout the deserts, you will find out that they have routes planned for these little critters, where they will walk from one destination to the other, and will travel very far away in their scripting, unless you approach them or something else scares them. And when they are scared, they will burrow under the ground to hide, which is something you can see reflected in many reptiles and insects that live in various deserts in real life. With all of this, though, their tail is more than just that, and they can use it to shade themselves, as well as leave fake tracks on the ground in the shape of various predators, which I thought was an interesting detail for them to include. It makes me think, I wonder if at some point in development, before they decide to go with an even more streamlined tracking system than what we had in World, that maybe they were used as a way to trick the player into taking a different path when following tracks, thinking that is the tracks of their current hunt target. I could see why they wouldn't want to do this, as they went very heavy on the quality of life in Monster Hunter Wilds, so having any sort of resistance like this would probably conflict with the direction of the game. Crab. All is crab. You will be crab. I will be crab. These are the cup crabs, as I like to put them, but each of the crab species in the various locales have different titles to them. The first ones we are looking at are the Floralshell crabs. You can see them eating and searching for various food to eat in the sand and shallow waters, and the various foliage on top of their heads is more than just a decoration, but a means to camouflage themselves from predators. If you approach them, you will see them burrow underground as a means to hide and pretend to be a plant, more or less. Some of the crabs we will be looking at do not have anything in their shell cups, which allows us to kind of peek inside and see that they can more or less just scoop anything into there and fill it as a way to hide. In a somewhat funny oversight, they forgot to add a flavor text for the Cruddshells, and it ends up sharing the same flavor text as the Floralshell variant. These Cruddshells are covered in various oils, and their behavior is fairly different from the ones we see in the Scarlet Forest. They tend to skitter around more often instead of searching for food, and I even noticed that they'll just immediately be burrowed before you even approach them without the need for intervention. As well as with these two, in all of the maps, you can find rare spawns called the Curioushell crabs, which have an ancient relic coin in their shell cup. These remind me a lot of some of the golden endemic life we found in Cove Taraf's territory. Possibly this design is just for fun, Or it could be implying that maybe at some point a similar large creature or elder dragon may have once passed through the Forbidden Lands. Though likely it is just a for fun design, knowing Capcom. Back in the forest for an insect, we are seeing the jewel scarabs, as well as the royal jewel scarab. These scarabs are extremely colorful and have very many colors and patterns to them that you can observe. If you want to observe these a little closer, I recommend catching a bunch and looking at them through the Endemic Life model viewer in the Windward Plains main camp. These can be easily overlooked if you're not somebody actively searching for endemic life, as you might just think they're another insect used to craft various things, given their very limited spawn locations that we find them in, the Scarlet Forest. On all of these beetles, you can see some sort of chitin or some sort of exoskeleton on all of these various jewel scarabs. I wonder if these are used for defensive means or if they're purely a decorative touch on the insects themselves. It must be very difficult for these insects to shed their exoskeletons. The reason you can see a lot of them on these trees is they are eating the sap that is found on them. I guess this means they are unaffected by whatever chemicals are in the sap, as Lala Brina uses these as part of a mixture to create toxins that are paralytic. Or maybe the sap on its own is nothing to be worried about. Is this cheating? I don't care. The best endemic life in Monster Hunter Wilds is Poogie. How can you not like this cute little pig? He even gets a little frog buddy in this one. Not only that, emergency food. Poogie has been a staple of the series for a very long time and has appeared in almost every Monster Hunter game. And a bit of a funny part, in Monster Hunter World, they ended up adding it in a post-update last second due to the community's outlash against the absence of Poogie in the game. So I guess technically if you have an unpatched version of Monster Hunter World, you will not get Poogie, which is interesting. In kind of a lame fashion, Poogie doesn't have any costumes in this one. What the heck? Even in Monster Hunter Rise, the Cahoots, of all things, got costumes as well. That should be their priority in the expansion, am I right? Throughout the series, we've also got a few other cute hub village animals in the past as well. These being the Mufi, the Cahoots, and the Guku, which is from the Monster Hunter Frontier series, an online version of a somewhat MMO-like version of the game. Though not exactly. If you have played maybe Warframe, it might have a similar feeling to that in its structure, minus the story bits, of course, and a lot more pay to win. They should bring back some of these other cute animals and let the community kind of pick their own favorite cute animal. I am quite partial to Mufi and Guku myself. And that will do it for another Bestiary video, this time on Monster Hunter Wilds Endemic Life. Up here, if you missed it, the other Bestiary video on Final Fantasy XIV. Down here, another video. Over here, subscribe. And thank you to my members. Bye-bye. Bye.